Welcome back, fellow mobile gamers, to the 8th episode of the Tiny Nimble Podcast, a show all about mobile gaming hosted by your friend Tiny and the son of Odin himself, Nimblethor. Today we have a very special episode. We're going to announce our favorite mobile games of 2019. We're going to talk about some exciting upcoming releases, as well as an informative conversation with the indie developer Dreamon Studios. It's an episode full of Tiny Nimble revelations. Now, if you're listening on Spotify or iTunes, feel free to leave a 5-star review to support the show. Let us know your thoughts on the topics covered and any ideas you might have for the next month's episode. So let's move on forward with our righteous recommendations. Nimblethor, take it away.
Thank you, Tiny. So my righteous recommendation of January is going to be Anime ARPG, which have you played that yourself, Tiny?
I have not, no.
No? Okay, interesting. This is going to be a good one then. You should play it, by the way, and everyone listening should play it as well. It's a hack and slash dungeon crawler RPG, so it's kind of like a Diablo-like game, very dark, very gritty. I really enjoyed the fantasy underground universe in this game. There's no classes, which I really like as well. You kind of have ultimate control and ultimate freedom. You can use any weapon. You can upgrade any stat you like, which is not too common in mobile games, sadly. But you do get that here in Anime ARPG, which is why it's my righteous recommendation. Combat feels nice. There's lots of kiting going on, though, which means that you'll kind of be running around the enemies, attacking them a little bit, then running away, then attacking them again. But if you like that type of thing, then this might just be a game for you. Then I think overall it's a great game. The monetization is also nice. There's only a single $1 in-app purchase, which is always appreciated. It's an indie game, as you might have guessed from that monetization model. It's coming to iOS this year, by the way, and it's already out on Android. So Tiny, I know you're on Android, so you should definitely go check it out after this podcast. It's a great game, and I think most of you guys are gonna enjoy it. Now, some over on Reddit mentioned that the combat feels a bit stale, and I can agree on that. I still think overall, though, it's one of the better ARPGs on mobile. We'll see when Diablo releases if they're really gonna change the whole game. No pun intended, but until that happens, this is a pretty good indie ARPG for mobile.
Yeah, I'm looking at the screenshots, and I do like the graphical style. It's gritty, it's dark, it's very old school Diablo-esque, and yes. It definitely looks like it has a good inventory management system from what I can see in the screenshots. So that's kind of cool.
Oh, it does, and there's so much loot in the game as well. So
nice, gotta love the loot.
Yeah, exactly. If you're a fan of that type of stuff, then which I am, which is why I like the game. But yeah, so there you go, an RPG game this month.
Nice.
What about your righteous recommendation, though, Tiny?
I'm going to go ahead and go with Sierra 7. I know we both played this game, and I really enjoyed this game. So what Sierra 7 is, it's a tactical first-person shooter. The controls are on rails, so it kind of means basically your character or the camera just guides you around to different segments of the game, and you shoot baddies that are in cover, or you can go in cover. What I really like about the game, it's not just the graphical style, which is like this kind of noir, black and white style. What I really like about the game is they put tactical shooter in the title, and it is an actual tactical shooter because you have to choose okay, should I reload my weapon now? Should I take cover? Should I do this? Should I throw this or should I throw this grenade? Or should I take this guy out? Or how fast can you do it? And what I really like about the game too is that it's challenging. This is no cakewalk of a game. You have to actually kind of use your resources and kind of use your brain when you're shooting these baddies. And I really like it. And the animations are so kind of goofy and funny too. Like when you shoot somebody with a headshot and the way they fall to the ground and there's blood on the wall or something like that. Everything about it just comes together, and I really I enjoyed so much of it that this is my righteous recommendation. You played it. What were your thoughts?
No, I played it as well. Yeah, I just wanted to add that it is indeed kind of gory. There's quite a bit of blood going on. I think over on Android, over on Google Play, I think it has a 17+ rating or maybe even an 18+. So just a fair warning, I guess, but if you don't mind
for
that
our
stuff,
younger listeners, fair warning.
or if you just don't like the gore in general, no matter how old you are. But I do agree, it's a good game. I enjoyed it as well. In my video of it, you can hear me enjoying the game, just like you explained. I also really liked the fact that it's actually a challenge to play. It's not easy. And there's some shooters on mobile that are difficult because the controls are difficult. But that's not the case in this case, because you've got those on-rails controls as you were talking about. Yeah, I like it as well. It could easily have been my pick as well. I'm a sucker for RPG games. I like shooters as well, but whenever I see someone trying to do a Diablo-like game, I have to pick that. But Sierra 7 is definitely up there on my list as well. Did you play the browser version of the game as well, by the way? Sierra 7 was initially a browser game.
So that's funny. Yeah, that's funny you say that, because I had no idea that it was, and somebody in one of the comment section of my video had said that, oh, it's basically a port from the browser, and I'm like, oh, I didn't know that. So I never played the browser game, but I can assume it's very similar. You're just using your mouse to aim, I'm guessing, point and click with the mouse. But I do know it's from the same developer that made, I think it was called Lone Wolf. I don't know if you ever heard of that game. Yes.
No, I was made aware of it. I haven't played it.
Yeah, and it's funny that I didn't realize it at the time, but now when I go back and think about it, I'm like, oh yeah, it had some very similarities when it came to like the graphical style, or when it came to the animations and whatnot. And Lone Wolf had a big focus on story, and while this one does have a story, I feel like Sierra 7 just focuses a lot on that tactical gameplay. So yeah,
that's true.
Very righteous.
It has a good monetization system as well, didn't it?
Yeah,
like Sierra 7.
Yeah, it did. It was more of like a purchase pack where you can like purchase a pack and like you get gear, and it's higher level gear. However, you can unlock that gear just by playing and replaying the missions. And the replayability of it is actually pretty fun. I enjoyed going back and trying to get a better score, or get a higher score, or take down enemies faster. So it was cool.
Nice. Good one.
All right, so now we're going to move on to some upcoming games of 2020. So, yes, 2019's over. Yeah, this is the good stuff, right?
So we've got a long list.
We have a very long list.
There's so many games coming out.
Yeah, so 2020 is going to be a big year for mobile gaming. I know we say this every year. 2019 was a big year. 2018 was. But 2020 is taking the cake right now. So we're just going to go through a list of games and talk about our thoughts, if we're super excited about them, stuff like that. But first up is going to be Apex Legends for mobile. Anybody familiar with the Battle Royale craze and Apex Legends from Respawn? Never. It's brand new to you, right?
Yeah, it's still. What is it?
But Apex Legends is coming out from Respawn Entertainment, so I don't know. Have you ever played Apex Legends, Nimble?
I've played it once on a friend's computer, but I never got around to playing it, kind of really diving into it on my own. But what I did play, and I've also watched some videos on YouTube of other people playing it. It seems like a great game, and I'm really looking forward to it coming to mobile. I never really got into Fortnite when that released. It was just too difficult to control on mobile. That's my opinion. I know a lot of people enjoy it on mobile, but that's my opinion with the whole building aspect. But I think Apex Legends is going to be really nice when it releases, and it's one of my personal, most anticipated games of 2020.
Yeah, I'm hoping that they do it right when it comes to the controls. And usually first-person shooters on mobile, especially with the ones that were released in 2019, have done really good with the control scheme and whatnot. So I'm hoping that they do that well. But I know the next game on the list you're really anticipating. What's that one?
Diablo Immortal.
Do you guys not have phones?
Yeah.
Jinx.
Dang it, that was my line. Okay, well, I'll be the answer then. I do have a phone, and Blizzard really ruined their own event there in 2019 when they announced that. But regardless, though, I'm really looking forward to it. I think it's actually going to be an amazing game. I think a lot of PC gamers are just hating on it because they don't play mobile games themselves, and I understand that sentiment. And people were expecting a different announcement from Blizzard. They weren't expecting a mobile game. But when we're in 2020 now, and if we forget all the negative press that this game got purely based off of the situation and the announcement of it in and of itself, if we forget all of that and just look at the game itself, I think it's going to be a great mobile game. I hope so.
I am definitely looking forward to it. I'm a fan of Diablo on PC, and I wasn't super duper upset when they announced it because I played so much mobile games that I know what to expect. So I'm just looking forward to seeing what they bring to the table. A part of me thinks, so I've heard rumors that the game is actually finished. So a part of me thinks they're actually holding off on release so that way we get more time in between that bad press. Like you mentioned, that bad press.
Yeah, because it was delayed. Or they said that they were going to delay it. They didn't really specify exactly why, but they said they were going to go back and ensure that the game was good enough. But that's just PR talk, right?
Could be, yeah.
Just marketing talk, I guess. I'm really hoping for them to go in and really cater towards the really make a very nice core combat system. I feel like it's very easy to make a good gameplay loop. Like you go out, you kill some monsters, you get some gear, you go back to town, you sell that to an NPC, or you level it up at a blacksmith, or you do some crafting or something like that. But it's very difficult to do amazing combat on mobile. So that's where I'm hoping Blizzard can go in and really make really spend a lot of time and care about the core combat system. And that's what I'm expecting from Diablo. And then, of course, I'm hoping that they're not going to ruin it through monetization. But I do think all the uproar that this game, all the negative press it had in 2019, might actually help make the game, make it more easy in its monetization system. If you know what I mean? Like, less aggressive. Yeah. I think they're afraid of doing it wrong.
Yeah, and it definitely would work when it comes to more downloads, I think, because people are just going to be very curious. So it would probably have a large initial download. Okay, so the next game we have on the upcoming list is H1Z1. Those familiar with that, that's another Battle Royale game. Well, Battle Royale just isn't dying, is it?
Nope.
Yeah, and I think it's like a zombie...
I guess that's the question. Maybe it is dying, and maybe these guys are too late to the game. No, seriously, do you think... Yeah, like H1Z1, is it going to bring anything... You said something about zombies, sorry.
No, it's okay. It's a zombie type, I guess. I never played the game on PC, but I guess it's a zombie type Battle Royale-ish game from what I remember. I
understood it.
Yeah, that's how I kind of understood it too. But, I mean, I'm not sure if I'm super excited for that one, but we'll have to see how it goes.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know what to expect either. I'm kind of looking forward to Apex Legends as my one Battle Royale of 2020. Maybe some indie games. You also mentioned another one, though, like Forza Street, right?
Oh, yes, that's right. Forza Street is also coming out. Looks like I might have missed that one. Those who are familiar with the popular, Forza franchise on Microsoft should be excited for Forza Street that's going to be coming out on mobile. And my guess is going to be like a... what's that popular racer genre? Oh gosh, Asphalt, right? My guess is going to be similar to like an Asphalt series. And we all know that Microsoft has a great track record when it comes to mobile games, right?
Yes. Gears Pop.
Yeah. Gears Pop. I'm looking at you, Gears Pop.
Yep. Oh, that game was so horrible.
They're bad.
They're trying to copy Clash Royale and failed miserably. I do hope that they're not going to do the same for Forza Street, though. Hopefully it's going to be a good one. I do wonder what they can bring to the table, though. I mean, you mentioned Asphalt, and that's a pretty well-regarded game. I mean, I know lots of people in real life who play that game, and these are people that don't play any other mobile games, but they play Asphalt. So, do you think Forza is going to be able to compete with that?
I hope so. I mean, my reservation comes in the form of if they're just going to try and doing copy-paste jobs like they did with Gears Pop, let's say, for example, exactly. And not bring anything like super new or anything innovative, I worry that might cause a failure, I guess, in that sense.
Yeah. We'll see. We'll see. There's a new Plants vs. Zombies game coming out, right?
Yep. Plants vs. Zombies 3 is on its way.
Yeah. I've only played the first one. I never played the second one, but I guess I'm looking forward to the third one. I think it's going to be a premium game, right? Or is it going to be free to play? Do you know?
So that I'm unsure of. So the first one was a premium game. The second one was free to play. And the first one was the better of the games, I believe, as well. And I don't know if it had to do with the fact that it was a premium title. But I'm curious to see which route. Yeah, exactly. I'm curious to see which route this one takes. Premium would probably be for the better if they want to recapture that Plants vs. Zombies feel. So I'm curious of that one as well.
But they probably want to make money, so they're probably going to go with free-to-play, with an energy system.
It's EA,
with competitive gameplay. Yeah, it's EA. With pay-to-win.
All that good stuff. It's 2020. I don't think heavy monetization is going anywhere or is going away anytime soon. So
I don't think so either. It only seems to be going away in shooters, really. Have you thought about that?
I've noticed that.
Grand scale shooters, you seem to have mostly cosmetics these days. Also some MOBAs, by the way. And there's a new MOBA coming out this year as well. Kind of a perfect segue here. Marvel Super War, which is the first MOBA set in the Marvel universe. I think it's NetEase, if I remember correctly. NetEase as the developer or publisher behind the game. I know it released already in some markets in Asia and Singapore, maybe, I want to say Malaysia as well. There were 3 different regions that it released in, but it hasn't yet released in the US and Europe, so that's what I'm looking forward to. It's been a while since I played a good MOBA game, so maybe this is going to be, this one is going to allow me to play as Iron Man, I guess, or Spider-Man, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, I'm actually excited about the idea of having a MOBA set in the, Marvel universe, so I'm curious for that one too.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense, right? Superheroes as your heroes, like that you play as.
Yeah, exactly.
It was just waiting to happen. Yeah.
Unlockable superheroes.
Yeah. Hopefully not too bad of a monetization. But again, we'll see. I've got my reservations, but we'll see.
And then next on the list, we have Super Meat Boy Forever. Those familiar with Super Meat Boy, yeah, I said that right. It's basically just a platformer. It's a challenging hardcore platformer that was released, I want to say, at least 5 years ago now on consoles and PC. This one is going to be a mobile version, so I think it's a brand new game, though. I don't think it's like a port or anything like that. And apparently it's supposed to be a mobile platformer. I don't know much about it. I don't know if it's going to be like an endless runner or if it's going to be an actual traditional platformer. We're just going to have to wait and see on that one.
It says here, I was just Googling it now, it says that it's going to release on the Nintendo Switch and on PlayStation and Xbox and PC as well. So it's apparently just completely cross-platform. And I think, unless Google is lying to me, it might actually already have released on PC. It says initial release date 2019.
Oh, okay.
So maybe some of the listeners have already played it. On Steam it says it's going to release in 2021. Actually, sorry to ruin your, ruin our list here. But it might not be coming out before 2022 or 2021. Sorry, let's not make it worse.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, maybe it's released for mobile in 2020 and then 2021. That could be it. Yeah.
Yeah. In any case, I haven't played the PC or I haven't played the first game, so I'm looking forward to playing this the second one. It's probably going to be a premium game. I'm pretty sure about that.
Yeah, I'm thinking so as well.
Yeah, they've got the brand. I think it's one of the most popular indie games, platforming indie games around. So I think they've got the brand, the IP to be able to pull off a premium title and a lot of there's a core audience that's gonna buy it no matter what. I think. So I think that's the route they're gonna take. Now,
and next on, I interrupted you.
I wanted to skip actually to the Riot games. We got to talk about the Riot games.
Let's do it.
I mean, holy smokes! Like, what just happened? Like, Riot released, they didn't release. They announced so many new games all of a sudden. They announced League of Legends first of all, League of Legends Wild Rift, which is basically League of Legends. So it's a MOBA, but for mobile and consoles. And that one I'm of course really looking forward to as well. I guess that is probably going to beat the heck out of Marvel Super War. I don't think Marvel stands a chance in comparison to League of Legends. They're kind of the grand old MOBA, right? One of the two big MOBAs, yeah. That and Dota 2 are kind of the two big ones. So it's coming to mobile. That's exciting. We also had Riot announce that Teamfight Tactics is also coming to mobile, which is their auto chess game. I'm a bit less excited about that one. I don't know about you, but personally, I feel like I've seen and played auto chess at this point, like the genre, and I don't think that Riot can add a whole lot of extra to that. I think Teamfight Tactics is probably mostly just going to be a game for the core audience of people who already like League of Legends. But I don't know if you agree, Tiny.
Auto chess, I enjoyed it, right? All those auto chess games, and I think everyone expected it to be this huge, big craze like Battle Royale was, let's say, and I don't see it necessarily going that way. I still see it as a niche kind of market. So for them to get into the auto chess game now, I don't know how well it's going to do. I'm curious to see how it is, but it's very interesting that they're releasing all these different type of games. I mean, they have more announcements, right?
Oh yeah, there are more coming. Legends of Runeterra, which is a collectible card game. So I guess sort of a Hearthstone competitor. And I think Riot is really going after Activision Blizzard here. Not only with Legends of Runeterra as a collectible card game, but also they're making a shooter, which when I saw some footage of that, it looked to me like sort of an Overwatch alternative. And they're also making an ARPG, so they're definitely going after Blizzard's Diablo. And that one, I don't think it has been confirmed if it's going to be releasing on mobile as well. But I think it would make sense, though. It seems like Riot is trying to push all their future games across multiple platforms nearly all at once. And if that's their strategy, I hope they'll be able to pull that off with their ARPG as well, and maybe they'll even be able to give Diablo some competition, which I would love to see.
Yep,
I'm really rooting for Riot here. I don't play any Riot games. I'm not a Riot fanboy, but I could turn into one if they're gonna go up against Activision Blizzard. I'll definitely be rooting for Riot. Yeah. Do you agree?
Yeah. Oh yeah, I would be Team Riot in that case. Riot versus Blizzard, to see what's going on there.
I do wonder, though, how they're going to manage so many games. I think they announced 5 or 6 new games in total, which is a lot of games. seeing as for the past many years they've just had League of Legends, and that's pretty much it. So maybe they've just been preparing. Maybe what we're seeing here is something. I mean, let's be real here. Like, it's definitely something that's been underway for many years, and they just have kept quiet about it, and now they're ready to announce it.
It could be. And I'm sure, didn't something happen where they acquired, like, I don't know, more employees or something along the lines? I remember reading in the news. Don't quote me on this, but I do know that I think they've expanded their team too. So that's probably why they're getting into these, all these releases coming up.
Yeah. Let's just hope they're actually going to be great. There's kind of my concern. Will they be able to manage so many games all of a sudden? We'll see. It's going to be interesting. 2020, we promised you guys, 2020 is going to be interesting for mobile games. Now, I think that was mostly it for the games that we were looking forward to for 2020, wasn't it?
Yeah, that looks about right.
Yeah, there are lots of great ones. Maybe we forgot about some, though, and in that case, do let us know. If you're over on YouTube, at least, you can leave a comment and let us know which game we should be looking forward to, or which game you're looking forward to for 2020. But now for our next segment, we're trying something new this time, something that some of you fine folk actually recommended that we should do. It is a developer interview. So what you're about to hear now is a conversation we had with Anders from Dreamon Studios back in late December last year. I have to start saying last year now, 2019, about his approach to mobile gaming and how he survives as a one-man indie developer. All right, then. Welcome to the show, Anders from Dreamon Studios. Anders, you made a couple of rather popular indie games, actually, that I think both Tiny and I talked about in the past, and I at least did a few videos on your games as well, at least for Bouncy Basketball and Gladihoppers. So we're very excited to have you here today. Thank you for spending some time with us and sharing your indie game development experiences. But how about as a beginning, let's go back to the very beginning, how you got into game development and a bit of an intro to who you are. Maybe I should mention that you are Swede. I have to point that out. So representing the Scandinavian countries here. Sorry, Tiny. but Anders, over to you. How did you get into game development?
Yeah, sure. Thanks for having me. First of all, I basically got into game development in university when I was studying to become an industrial designer. And during those courses we were doing 3D modeling, and from there I kind of took the step towards 3D animating, and I actually wanted to become an animator, a 3D animator, and I was about to sign up for courses to do, those online courses. But exactly at that moment, for some reason I don't remember, I found out about Unity. And because I have had a lot of interests that were very, different, like music, as I mentioned, 3D modeling. I made games in the past as well. And as I found out about Unity, it all kind of clicked, and I started to try to make games. And that's where I got into it.
So you didn't have any prior programming knowledge? You mentioned
that's another one of my interests. I also programmed. I made websites. I used to make websites in PHP and small programs, and so I actually made mods for other games as well.
Oh, which PC games or?
Online version of GTA San Andreas.
San Andreas.
Yeah,
my man. I played that game so much.
GTA San Andreas had their own kind of like a third-party multiplayer service. I don't remember what it was called. SAMP, I think. SAMP. Yeah, SAMP. And then there you had lots of people making servers. So they were making their own kind of like, the most famous one was the Godfather server, I think, where you basically had the 5 families of the Godfather, and it was a role-playing. So you had a lot.
Interesting.
That was really good times.
This was back in 2000.
Oh, this must
have
been,
remember?
2006, 7 maybe.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you'd sort of been playing around with video games in a slightly different way than just playing them. The modding scene was something that had already dragged you in.
Yeah.
Way before you got into making games in Unity.
Yeah, map making. I guess this is a pretty common way for people to get into game development.
Yeah, I guess so. It comes from, we talked about this, just before we started recording here. I guess for many people, it starts with a passion for games. And then, as you just mentioned, maybe they go into modding, and then eventually they feel like they want to make your own games.
Yeah, exactly.
So speaking of basically, getting into modding and doing all of that fun stuff, did that make the transition, I guess, smoother into starting to create your own games? Was that kind of like the way that you're like, oh, this is something I can do?
Yeah, I think so, because speaking of GTA San Andreas again, they kind of gave you, I would call it, more or less like a game engine. You had the whole game, and you had the multiplayer service, but it was empty, and you had to create something for the players to do. So yeah, it kind of made me understand that to take a game from start to finish, there's a whole process, and that process isn't impossible, but it's of course difficult to do.
So you've made about I think 4 mobile games at this point. Which game would you consider your biggest success, and why would you think that is? In terms of just downloads, I think the biggest success is Bouncy Basketball. The reason why it's the most successful, I think, well, to go back a bit, I made, as all game developers do, I made lots of prototypes and small games that never, big games that were never finished. And then you kind of need to narrow down your scope and try to make something that is smaller, so that you're able to finish it, especially if you're a solo game developer. And from there, I was inspired by a game called Soccer Physics, if you've heard of it.
Soccer Physics.
Yeah, you should play it. I don't know if it's available for mobile anymore, but back in 2014 it was hugely popular, and it had this thing with you were playing against a person, so local multiplayer on the same screen, so you had the simple button press.
Right.
And this made me think that mobile games is it could be a simple way to make a small experience, a small local multiplayer experience. And I made a hockey game first of all, and then I made another game that was a helicopter game, and then as a third game I made Bouncy Basketball. And this local multiplayer aspect of the game, I think, is what made it popular.
I really do, and just to say, Bouncy Basketball is probably my favorite game. I played all of your other games as well, but I just got hooked on it for some reason, and I played in single player, just me against another team. I kind of like the old school look to it, and I do like that you implemented the sports teams, the NBA sports teams, but not the actual teams.
They're not the NBA. They're just
they're just the cities.
They're
just the cities. Yeah, that's what I meant to say. And I actually kind of like that too, because I know what my team is. It reminds me of the old school Nintendo games when you would just play them, and of course it wasn't the NBA teams, but you would be playing as oh, that's my team. But yeah, it's good, simple fun. I just really enjoyed it. Do you think the sports aspect of it makes it a little bit more popular, or what made you decide to do the sports? Because I see you have Hockey Hysteria, and then of course Bouncy Basketball. Do you have are you a fan of these sports? Is that what kind of made you want to go that route with those games?
I think the sports aspect of making a game is a big plus for a beginner. If you're starting game development and you're making a sports game, you already know the game. It's a game. It's already a game. You just have to recreate it in a different form, right?
Yeah, so the game design was a bit easier.
Yeah, and I wouldn't say this was the reason, but I think that was the reason I was actually able to finish the game.
Yeah. So the scope was small enough that it was something you could finish, as you talked about.
Yeah,
before.
and it was something that was already done. Hockey. Everyone knows the rules of hockey.
So I imagine Bouncy Basketball is also the biggest game you've got in terms of downloads, and I presume also the most the game that did financially the best. But is that still the case though? Because you mentioned that Bouncy Basketball was your third game. Was that correct? And then you made Gladihoppers, which also, I mean, at least looking on the numbers we see as mere players on the app stores, it seems like that one is really popular as well. So I'm just curious, do you still? I mean, you're full-time on this. You're full-time on your own indie studio, and it's a one-man operation. Is Bouncy Basketball still the best earning game, or is there something where it's typically the newest game that earns the most because the old games are not that many players left? Or how does that look for you?
Yeah, I imagine it's the same for everyone. Obviously, if you release a new game, it's going to get... it used to be the case that in the beginning... in the beginning of a game's lifespan, that the release, the day of the release was extremely important, and I guess to a certain extent it still is. But back in 2015, when I released Bouncy Basketball, you really needed to have a good release day, and I did kind of have a good release day. But as to answer your question. It depends on how you look at it, because of course in total Bouncy Basketball is a 5-year-old game now, and it has earned a lot of money over the years. But Gladihoppers right now is obviously having its early days, and I imagine that within the next 2-3 years it's gonna it's gonna earn more than Bouncy Basketball did in those years.
I can try to unwrap the question a bit more. Yeah. Actually, what I was thinking about in my head when I asked the question was that I recently read this headline that Sims, the Sims franchise from EA, had now earned over $5 billion in total across all of the games, across all PC and mobile and console, so wherever you can get the game. But that's a lot of money, and a lot of that comes from Sims 4, which EA started seeing as more of a games as a service.
That's very surprising, actually.
It is surprising. Yeah. It surprised me as well.
I would say that's the worst of the Sims.
Yeah, right. I think arguably.
Maybe that doesn't matter.
Maybe that doesn't matter. At least it earns a lot of money. So some people are buying the game, buying the DLC, buying the microtransactions, and so on. So for EA, I mean, I'm not making the comparison between one of the world's biggest game developers and then you, but at the same time, is it even possible to have an old game, or at least speaking from your experiences, can you have an old game that still earns money, or do you need to constantly come up with new games to continue making a living as an indie developer, at least in your case? That was sort of the thinking behind the question.
Yeah. Okay. No, it's certainly the case that you constantly need to make new games, unless you have some sort of like a very well thought out way of monetizing the game far into the future. But for most people, I imagine you have a big you're the first quarter or something that you earn a lot of money, and then it slowly fades out. But to take an example, personal example, Bouncy Basketball, it kind of gets revived every time there's the playoffs in the NBA, or every time a new season starts.
That makes sense.
So in that way, I guess sports games have an advantage over other games.
Because that's another reason to make.
There aren't any gladiators anymore, so.
Well,
they're not starting the new season of Gladiators, right?
Yeah, unless you're talking MMA or something.
Yeah, the Hunger Games, I guess. Fortunately for us, I guess a bit unfortunately for you and your revenue, we don't have gladiators these days. But okay, so Bouncy Basketball, your most successful game, Gladihoppers, the second most successful game. What about? This might be a bit of a frustrating question, totally unfair for me to ask, but what about your least popular game? Like, I imagine sometimes you release a game that just doesn't do well at all. And do you still... Can you talk a bit about that process and how you continue from that? And also, how long do you actually spend, to develop a game? And is that just wasted? I mean, if the game doesn't do well,
you can spend far too long developing a game.
I believe
especially if it, yeah. Well, I mean, this kind of relates to the question that you previously asked, and the last question about Bouncy Basketball, because once I released Bouncy Basketball, it got a lot of attention, and I could make a living out of making games. And I guess that kind of made me realize, or made me think that, now I'm a mobile game developer now. So I need to take a look at what other mobile game developers are doing, and I need to follow trends and everything. I need to act like a mobile game developer.
That's what they tell you.
That's what they tell you. But
it's the same on YouTube. You gotta follow the trends.
You gotta act like a YouTuber,
Exactly. But I mean, I don't know if you remember, but the start of hyper casual. I don't know if this is this is obviously a bit of a speculation, but I think a big reason hyper casual got so popular was the fact that you could play it with one hand. It was very accessible. I mean, at this point, I don't even know if this is speculation. It's obviously the case. So the more accessible a game is, the more people are gonna play it. But at that time, 2015, 2016, I was looking at the mobile game market, and I was seeing a lot of these games where you played with one hand and you were only using your thumb to kind of like manipulate your character or something, whatever it was. And that made me think that I needed to do a game similar to that in order to be even more successful, in order to be a true game developer, for mobile at least.
It makes sense. I mean, it makes complete sense to go through that train of thought.
Yeah, so that made me end up making a game that is called Jumpy Canyon. That is a game where you simply tap to spin your character, and you're jumping down a canyon, and it's a terrible game, and that's, I would say, is my worst game, simply because I didn't like developing it, and I didn't like playtesting it, because it wasn't until Gladihoppers that I actually started having other people playtest my games. So I was only playing them myself, and that's a big part of making your game. Obviously, you have to try it out, right? And if that process is boring, then making the game is boring.
Yeah, well, that as well. Yeah. I'm just looking at Jumpy Canyon right now, and I do see how it, from looking at the screenshots and the gameplay videos, it fits into that whole, as you mentioned, what would come to be known as hyper casual. At least I don't know if that term was even fully coined back then, but at least that's the word we use these days. And I guess really it nearly started with, well, it didn't start with, but Flappy Birds happened, and that was in 2013 or 14 or whenever that was, and I think that inspired a lot of people to start making what eventually ended up as hyper casual games. So it makes sense, I guess, to go that route. But you didn't enjoy making the game, is what you're saying.
No, and I think that's I don't remember if the question was why it happened, like why it was unsuccessful, but I would say that's the reason, because I didn't like playing it, I didn't like developing it, and it turned out to be a very boring game. And probably another reason was because it's extremely difficult for someone who's never played it, and there's not much of a tutorial. And then once you actually learn how to play it, there's really no reason to continue playing it, because you're just jumping down a canyon. There's nothing there.
Right. Yeah. So maybe it was
I would say that's the case with all hyper casual though.
Yeah. Yeah, that is the case, I guess.
That's the reason I don't like them.
Right.
Well, so it sounds like you've made like games you've had fun making, games that you haven't maybe not had so much fun making, and it kind of goes into why you think some might be successful or not. But out of the games that you've made, do you think that you would be making any sequels to any of these games, maybe adding some different mechanics, things like that?
Yeah, I'm actually working on Bouncy Basketball 2 right now.
Yes. Oh, sorry. I got excited.
Yeah. But just to mention, I mean, obviously everyone likes different games, and it depends on it depends, I guess, if what you want to create. And for me personally, I want to make something that is, since I grew up playing a lot of RPGs, I want to make something where people kind of feel like they're part of a world. And maybe that's not reflected in the games that I make, but that's the direction I want to take. And so yeah, personally, for me to make a hyper casual game was not an enjoyable experience for that reason, and not for other reasons. Like it's a worse kind of game. I'm not saying that, but yeah, I want to take a Bouncy Basketball 2 to towards a direction where it's more of a not just a gameplay, but it's more about managing the teams and drafting players and stuff like that. So it's
I like that.
Yeah, because obviously if you're a solo game developer, you need to focus on learning how to make the games at first, and it's difficult to incorporate all the elements that make the AAA games good, like Assassin's Creed and everything with the story and things like that. But once you manage to get to a certain level where making the actual gameplay is more or less manageable, then you can start to think about making it more of an bringing in other things that complements the actual game, that gameplay.
Yes.
Sorry.
So making maybe more advanced games, like larger
I mean,
games.
I get yeah. That's the ambition of most game developers. I would say.
Interesting. Okay, so Tiny, follow me here. So Bouncy Basketball 2, and then the Diablo killer, like the fantasy RPG from Dreamon Studios.
Yes. I like that. I'm with it.
That's what I heard him say. Hey,
yeah.
What I heard him say.
There probably needs to be a few more games and in between.
Okay then.
And maybe a few more employees.
Well, now that you bring that up, Nimble Thor, that is a good question I do want to ask you is, do you see yourself continually doing mobile games? Is that where you want to stay? Or do you want to like branch out into, I don't know, maybe console PC or something along those lines? Like, or do you just see yourself staying in mobile, but then also getting like bigger games out there? Where do you see yourself going?
So that ties into a previous question. The reason I started out with mobile was obviously it was something that was very accessible to people, and there wasn't really anything. There were PC ports and stuff in the beginning, but there wasn't really anything defined with mobile. And nowadays it's become, as we mentioned, hyper casual. But I wanted to create games that were simple but had some kind of another layer to them. And back in 2014, I think the mobile platform was really the only one where you could publish pretty much freely amateur-ish games, right? Because Steam was closed down for indie devs. But yeah, that's why I started in mobile, and I kind of continued because it was sustainable for me to continue working on that. But nowadays you have the Switch, you have Steam is open for indie devs. So I don't know. I personally prefer to stay on mobile right now because the workflow and everything, I have it all under control, so to speak. And there's still
you know how to do it now.
Yeah, and there's still so many other aspects of making an actual game that I still want to explore and learn more about, that switching to a different platform right now, I don't even consider it like an enjoyable experience.
See, that's actually a perfect segue, because I was going to ask you a bit about, I remember when I played Bouncy Basketball and probably Gladihoppers as well, there were advertisements in the game, but there was no option, and this is what surprised me, there was no option to buy a $1 or $2 or $3 or even $4 in-app purchase to remove those advertisements, which surprised me a bit. You talked about gameplay features, but monetization is an entirely different topic as well, I guess, because I guess the first question is, why is that? Like, why is there no... do you earn enough from ads? I guess you do, but don't you think you could earn more if you had an in-app purchase to remove ads? I presume some people would buy it.
Yeah, I mean, the simple reason is that the accountants are very expensive in Sweden. So in-app
that's a good fair answer.
No, but seriously, I've heard, and this is things I've heard, but generally I've heard from other game developers that an in-app purchase to remove ads is not it's not profitable. It's not worth the...
Interesting.
Yeah. And
it might be the case. I don't know. I just see it in so many games that when it's not there, it surprises me. But yeah, I guess it might be true that maybe not that many people buy it.
Yeah, and obviously don't quote me on this, but because I heard the same thing about rewarded ads, and it turned out not to be the case. Because
right,
yeah,
for you at least.
Yeah, at least for me, of course.
So I actually have a follow-up question here. Did you then change, because you mentioned now that rewarded video ads worked for you? Was that correct? Like, rewarded video ads actually worked very well for you, but you haven't had those in the game since the beginning? It was something you introduced later, or how has that evolved over the years?
Yeah, so this is kind of also the reason I'm not doing in-app purchases right now, is because as I've been mentioning, there are so many things that you could do, and this is just an extra thing that you have to think about, and monetization has always been kind of like an afterthought to the whole process of making the game. The same thing with rewarded ads, right? I wasn't making them because I heard that it wasn't profitable, and then I never took the time to actually implement them. But yeah, before with Bouncy Basketball, you could, like, only serving interstitial ads was a very, very profitable thing to do. And I think that might be changing because, for example, taking the Gladihoppers as an example, if I wouldn't have implemented the interstitial, the rewarded ads to complement the interstitial ads, then yeah, it probably wouldn't. I would have lost 50% of the income basically.
Oh wow, 50%. So I guess in Bouncy Basketball too, we can expect some rewarded.
Yeah, the game is gonna pause when you're about to shoot, and it's gonna ask you if you want to watch an advertisement to increase your chances of making. No, I'm just kidding. No, but yeah, I would like to implement some, because this is my whole view on monetization. I want to keep it. Well, first of all, I want to try to serve as few interstitial ads as possible. Obviously, you need to make a little bit of money to survive, right? But as little intrusion as possible, and same thing with the reward ads. I want to keep them as, not affecting the gameplay that much, right? That's the general idea that I have.
I'm glad to hear that. Listen, guys, anyone listening to the podcast, this is why we should support more indie developers. You won't. I promise you, this would be a very different conversation if we talk with. King or Zynga, as we talked about on the last podcast, Tiny Zynga games with their, or Tencent. Well, yeah, I mean, they have lots of in-app purchases, but at least not so much pay to win. But in Zynga games and EA, and they make all the money, and they have the horrible, from a player's perspective, the horrible monetization systems.
It's very refreshing just to hear a developer. Or just an indie developer, anybody just say that, when they're making the game, they're not thinking of the monetization. They're actually just thinking of making the game. And you just don't hear that very often. And I know a lot of indie developers do have that kind of mindset, but it's good to actually hear someone say that, because you get a better game experience out of that. And then the in-apps, or not even in-apps, the monetization can be an afterthought. There's far too many mobile games out there where the monetization is at the forefront. They're thinking of how to build the game around it. So doing it this way, I feel like is just like it creates a better experience, and I'm sure you enjoy making the games that way as well.
Yeah, exactly. I think that if you're a solo game developer, the fun part is making the actual game, and I think this is also a reason why I see a lot of game developers that they don't want to develop for mobile because they have this opinion of mobile that in order to actually make money on mobile, you need to monetize very heavily, and they're against this. Most indie game developers are players themselves, and they don't want to take advantage of other players, so to speak,
And sometimes to a fault, I would say. Sorry for just jumping in here, but sometimes I get kind of frustrated, and I realize I cut you off there, but I'm a bit passionate about this. I get kind of frustrated with indie developers, and sorry for pointing this at you, but at indie developers who say they don't want to monetize and too heavily, right? And that's fine. It's admirable. But then they end up earning so little because they didn't, partially because they didn't monetize heavily enough, or think enough about it, and then I'm not going to be able to enjoy their future games that they would have otherwise made. And it has happened so many times with indie developers that I really liked. So, I'm glad to hear that you can figure out that balance, and your games have been successful enough that you can live off of advertisements. But it's such an interesting topic. I feel like. Because I hear what you just said there. I hear that from other indie developers as well. We don't want to monetize too heavily. We want to be fair to the players. We think about the gameplay experience we would like to have as players as well.
Yeah, sure. And this was kind of my point that, obviously this is a whole ethical conversation, but to add to what you were saying, I think these developers maybe have this opinion of mobile, and they turn to Steam instead, and they release a game that I don't think is what players on Steam want to play. And if they were to make this game for mobile and make it with a fair monetization, they would earn way more money. This is obviously my speculations, but yeah, I would like to see more indie game developers at least consider developing for mobile.
Amen to that. So listen, if there are any indie developers out there then that, or I should say aspiring indie developers, anyone looking to get into game development, do you have any, because you've been developing mobile games for quite a while at this point. You said you started in 2000.
6 years
Was
now,
it 14 you released? Yes, 6 years now.
you.
Congratulations, by the way, for being able to stay in business. No, seriously, like that's longer than most, even most larger studios, sadly, in the games industry. But my question was, do you have any tips or suggestions for anyone looking to become a game developer who might be listening to this podcast? Is there anything you wish that you had known going into the industry, or it can be software related, technical, non-technical, business wise? Just, is there anything that you feel like people should think about?
Obviously you need to know the software, you need to know all the tools that you use to develop games and everything, and there are plenty of tutorials. It's easy to learn, and you just need to start doing it. That's the obvious question, the obvious answer. But I think that another thing that less people consider might be the fact that if you're an indie game developer, you manage your own time, and you're in control of you're your own boss. So that's something that I wish I paid more attention to. Actually, in the beginning, was what I was actually spending my time on, and I wish I was more careful with not wasting time, and just also not working for too long, because after a certain point you're just
time management,
doing stupid things, right? Because you've been working for too long. So time management, I would say, and just being disciplined.
Do you actually have? Do you use, even as just a one-man team? Do you use any of those?
I use Trello.
Softwares out there, like there's Trello, and there's different types of. Yeah. Even though you're just a one-man team, just to keep track of
everyone said,
what you gotta
tells
do
you in the beginning, you need to use lists, you need to make lists of things, you need, checklists and everything, organize everything you do. And in the beginning I was very much like, no, I can just have it all in my head and I'll be fine. And yeah, now I use so much of my time I spend on Trello, just making sure I'm doing what I'm supposed to do, basically, and that I don't forget about good ideas and stuff like that. So yeah, that's another thing that I would say.
Listen, Anders, we appreciate that you spend your time wisely, so you can make more games that that Tiny and I can make videos of and recommend to more people. It sounded like you, Tiny, you were definitely going to play Bouncy Basketball too.
I'm highly anticipating
when it releases,
it.
And maybe if you're really lucky. And maybe if you're really lucky, you can get Anders to send you a test build, because I remember hearing him say that he needed people to test his games. So
I'm available.
Fingers crossed, Tiny. Maybe that's something.
No, sure.
I'm putting Anders on the spot here.
If you need me.
Abusing the podcast powers. All right. Listen, thank you once again, Anders. This was a really insightful conversation. Interesting to hear about.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, our pleasure. And we hope, by the way, that everyone listening got something out of this. If you have suggestions for other indie developers or even larger studios that we should try to do an interview with, be sure to let us know. And now we'll go back to the second half of the normal podcast we've got scheduled. So, welcome back. Hope you enjoyed that conversation with Anders. Now we're going to get into the good stuff. As promised, we're going to talk about our game of the year, or games of the year maybe, of 2019. And I want to let you start out, Tiny. So tell us, we're all waiting, what is your favorite, or what was your favorite game of 2019?
Okay, folks, this was a hard one. I got to be honest. I went over I can't do a drum roll. I went over in my mind so many different games. I made a top 5 video of games, and they weren't like, my all like the best of the year, but just I kind of condensed it a little. But I have to say my top game of 2019, and you guys probably called it, is Call of Duty.
Was that a pun?
I didn't mean to do a pun, but that was a really good pun, actually.
Okay.
I have to say, Call of Duty is one of those games where I was anticipating it. It came out, it delivered on all my anticipations, and it was fun. It was I'll say it once, I'll say it a million times. It's Call of Duty in the palm of your hands. I mean, what more can you ask for? There was just so much enjoyment I had out of it. The graphics were good. The gameplay was fast paced. The reward system was great. The progression was great. The monetization, mostly all cosmetic. Nothing was really pay to win, which is awesome. And so much content and even more content is being released for that game that I feel like you just get so much enjoyment out of it. So that's my top game of the year. Now, I do have some runner-ups. And that would be First Summoner. Those of you familiar with First Summoner, was a great horde mode based tactical bow and arrow shooter. I loved creating an army in that game. And another one of my runner-ups would have to be Teppen. Now, Teppen is released semi-globally. I don't think it's released in European countries. Sorry, Nimble.
Shut up.
Yeah, and the biggest thing I think that should be a surprise is why it's on one of my top games is because I'm not usually a big fan of card battlers, but this game made me a fan of card battlers. Maybe it's just the Capcom characters, maybe it's the awesome specials, but if anything, it's just the tactical card placements and the using your brain to defeat opponents. And I can't tell you how many times I've played Teppen and it looks like I'm gonna lose. I have one sliver of health left, and all of a sudden I make this miraculous comeback. And games that do that, I just get so much joy out of. But those are my runner-ups. Call of Duty is the best of 2019, and I'm curious on what you think, Nimble.
Before I get into that, I want to just add First Summoner. I really like that as well, and I'm gonna say that now before I'm gonna go into my games, because that's not my favorite of the year, and it's not one of my run-ups either. But it is a great game, and I liked it as well because it was so unique. The gameplay was actually unique. I haven't played anything like First Summoner on mobile ever. I've played something that obviously there's some games that are somewhat similar, but I haven't played anything exactly like that before, which is very rare on mobile. Most games are just kind of copy-pasting each other and changing a few things. But anyway, for my game of the year of 2019, I am gonna pick, I'm also gonna pick Call of Duty. It's Yeah, big surprise. Call of Duty Mobile, you said it all already. I really like that game. So I guess I'll just skip to my run-ups because I talked so much about Call of Duty on this podcast already. It was great. It was everything I expected. But my run-ups then are Infinitode 2, which is an indie game made by, as far as I know, just a single indie developer actually. But it's impressive that this one person could come up with what is now my favorite tower defense game. It's an infinite tower defense game, which... if you wanna learn more about it, just go download it, go check it out. It's a very small game, doesn't take up a lot of space. It's offline playable. The infinite part means that at some point you will have completed the objectives of whatever mission you're doing at the moment, whatever level you're in. But you can just keep playing if you want to. And it just goes on for forever. And there's a huge research tree. So if you're into games with progression that's going to take you, hundreds of hours to get through in the good way, right? Because it's a game that'll keep you hooked, hopefully. Then Infinitode 2 is definitely a game to get into. Most tower defense games I play tend to become a bit boring after a while, but Infinitode 2 really nailed the formula of an indie tower defense game. Anyway, my next run-up is Grim Valor, which is a sort of 2D side-scrolling... Did you play it as well? 2D side-scrolling RPG?
It's a great choice.
Yeah, it's a good one. It's I want to say it's probably one of the most appraised games in its genre of 2019 as well. And what I mean by that is that people just generally seem to like the game. Both the hardcore players over on iOS gaming and Android gaming, and also just the more casual players or the random mobile gamers who just opened up Google Play or the App Store and they saw it recommended. It has great ratings, but it's also well liked among the, I don't know what you want to call those types of people, ourselves included. Critics? I don't know. We're not critics, but like the people who play a lot of mobile games also like Grim Valor, which is pretty rare for this type of game. It's also a premium game on iOS and on Android. It has one chapter, I think, as a free-to-play, and then you have to pay to unlock the rest. So for that reason, nobody's complaining about the monetization system either, which is typically one of the main complaints of of mobile games, sadly. But Grim Valor, Infinitode 2, and then Call of Duty as my all-time favorite. But do let us know, though, what your favorites are. I'm kind of curious to hear what our listeners' favorite games of 2019 are. They don't have to have been released in 2019. I mean, we picked games that were released in 2019, but just what are you guys playing now, and what did you enjoy playing in 2019? Do share that with us in the comment section.
All right, folks, I hope you enjoyed this podcast. Now, in case this is the first episode you've listened to, remember that there are already 7 episodes waiting for you. And if you want more mobile gaming goodness, you can follow both Tiny Little Games and Nimblethor on YouTube. Also, don't forget to check out the Mobile Gamer Discord channel. Links in the description are below. So come join us for some awesome mobile gaming conversations. And with that said, we hope that you enjoyed this episode, and we'll see you again next month. Bye.
I don't know if I should add anything.
Add something.
Bye.